Michael and I got a new toy, and y'all know how it is when you get a new toy. You're just so excited to use it and play with it. We're like little kids on Christmas morning with our brand new toy. So we are going to share with you today some really cool projects that we have made with our brand new toy. And if you're curious what that is, stick around. Hello, my beautiful darling friends. Welcome back. It is so good to see all of you. I hope this finds y'all well and happy and that you are enjoying your fall so far. We have really been enjoying fall. The weather has finally cooled off, the leaves are turning, and I am absolutely loving it. I feel like it took a while for us to actually experience some fall weather, but it is finally here. I'm loving it, and it has definitely put me in the mood for all those fall feels. Glowing candles, crispy leaves, and fun fall projects. So I have a couple of really cool things to share with y'all today. I think y'all are going to really enjoy this. Michael and I got a brand new 3D printer, and we have been having a blast with this thing. It has been so much fun using it. So for today, Michael 3D printed me some really cool projects that I can hardly wait to share with y'all. So let's just jump right into today's projects. This project is one that I'm so excited about. So this was one of Michael's first attempts at 3D printing me a home decor piece. Y'all, look at this. This is so cool. I am so excited about this. So I did have an inspiration piece, and I showed Michael the picture and I said, hey, do you think you could 3D print something similar to this? And he was like, yeah, I'm gonna give it my best shot. And y'all, look at this. The detail is amazing. I am loving how this vessel turned out. The only thing we did forget to do was in the original print, we forgot to add the handle. So he printed me a handle separately. So I do need to attach the handle, and to attach it to our vessel here, I am using some Gorilla Glue. It's the construction adhesive, the gel construction adhesive, and I love this glue so much. It is a really good glue. The only downfall to this is it does take quite a while to set up, about 12 hours to fully set and cure. But once it was cured, the handle was very securely held to this. It wasn't going anywhere. And y'all, look at this. I am so impressed with this. It is a 3D printed piece. So we're going to use this vessel as a form. Now it is really cool exactly the way it is, but we're going to take this up a notch, and I am going to cover it with some sheetrock mud. And I am doing this because I don't want this to look like plastic. I want it to have a stoneware look to it. I want it to not look just like plastic, obviously. So I'm using sheetrock mud to do this, and I chose the sheetrock mud because it dries really fast. There are so many other mediums that you could use to do this. You could use air dry clay to cover this. That would look super cool. You could use powdered ceramic coating to do this. You just mix it with water, and that would look really cool too. But again, I chose the sheetrock mud because it does dry the very fastest. So to apply it to the vessel, I am just going to smear it all over this thing. I want to make sure that every inch of this pumpkin vase is completely covered in the sheetrock mud. I do have some water next to me, and every now and then I dip my brush, just barely dip it into the water just to get the tips of my brush a little bit damp, and this helps just apply the mud a little bit smoother, and it helps it glide on a little smoother. One thing to keep in mind when you are covering this with the sheetrock mud is you want to make sure you get that upper edge really well, the lip of the vessel, and then you want to get down inside the vessel just a little bit. So in the event that whatever floral arrangement you put in here, it doesn't cover the whole, inner rim of this vessel, having a little bit of the sheetrock mud in there just eliminates some of that black from showing through, and, it makes it look more put together, I guess you could say. So here it is, all dry. I let the sheetrock mud set for about 24 hours to completely dry. Doesn't really need that long, but that's just, I gave it some extra time. And it looks really, really good. For the most part, I got super good coverage. The sheetrock mud is adhering to the vessel really well. That was one thing I was a little uncertain about, but that doesn't seem to be a problem at all. It has stuck to the vessel. It's not coming off. It isn't going anywhere. I did get a few bumps in this. It's not super, super smooth. I got some places in this where the sheetrock mud kind of built up. So I'm going to take this outside and give it a really, really, really good sanding. I'm also going to clean up that bottom a little bit. You don't ever see the bottom, but I do want it to be really nice and clean. So here it is, all sanded. And this took a while, and I was covered in sheetrock dust. I literally looked like someone sprinkled my whole body in powdered sugar. So make sure you do the sanding outside and wear a mask. Okay, so because I didn't get a really, really good full coverage on this, you can see a little bit of the plastic showing through in some places. I'm going to go ahead and give this a second coat. However, this time I watered down the sheetrock mud pretty thin. So I watered it down to about the consistency of a thin milkshake. And now I'm just going to go ahead and spread one more coat all over this entire thing, just to give this some extra coverage and to cover up some of that black that's showing through, but also to give it a little extra strength. It is so true when they say hindsight is 20/20, right? So I really wish that after thinking about this, and as I was applying this second coat, I started telling myself, I really wish I would have applied my initial coat this exact same way with the thin down sheetrock mud for several reasons. First, it went on so much smoother. It just glided across this vessel so nicely, and it would have eliminated a whole bunch of that sanding because I wouldn't have had a lot of those bumps and lumps. However, by doing it this way, I'm quite sure it would have taken 3 to 4 coats of the mud to get it really fully covered. So that is just something to think about. I kind of do wish that's how I would have started out. But anyway, hindsight and all. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start painting this. So I'm going to put an initial base coat down on this, and I'm just using this is just a sample color that I had. I don't even remember what this color was called, but it's just a really pretty neutral kind of grayish white, and that's the color I'm going to choose just to get a base coat down on this entire vessel. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I cover the entire thing and then let this coat dry thoroughly before applying our second and third and fourth and fifth coats of paint. First initial coat of paint is completely dry, and so now I'm going to go ahead and start doing some dry brushing on this. Now, y'all know me. I like to paint in lots and lots and lots of layers. I think the more layers you have, the more depth you get to the piece, the more realistic it starts to look. It just starts to take shape and look more like a real true piece of stoneware. I like things that kind of have that vintage found look to them. Now, if you want just a clean, a pristine look to this, I would first of all highly recommend that you take the time to do several coats of the drywall mud that's been thinned down, because I think you're going to get more of that clean or that smooth ceramic look. And then you could just come in with one coat of paint. Well, you'd have to use a couple coats of paint to get good coverage, but you don't have to do all of this layering and dry brushing that I choose to do. You could just give this a nice, beautiful, clean finish by just doing one color. However, y'all know me. I like working in layers. So I'm going to start out by dry brushing some of this really pretty kind of a yellow orange color on here. It's kind of a gold orange actually. And I really love this color. I will try to have the colors that I used listed in the description box, but a lot of these are just sample colors that I have picked up over time. And so some of the labels are wore off and I don't know all the colors. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead, dry brush this whole thing on with this coat, let that dry, and then we're going to come in and do yet another layer of paint. We're going to be doing a lot of layers of paint to this, and I know it's not always super exciting to watch me paint, but I like you to see the process and see how the change happens. You know, with each layer, change definitely happens, and it does begin to take on just this really pretty dimension and depth. And this is one of those places where you do really trust the process, because it definitely takes on an ugly phase. And at one point even I was like, oh my God, this looks horrible. What have I done? But again, just trust the process and trust yourself too, to just go with it, right? So dry brushing is something that's kind of important for me to achieve some of these layers, that layered look that I want, to get that vintage found look to this, because I did want this to look like a piece of stoneware, right? Not necessarily pottery, because pottery is usually more smooth and it's a single color. So I like that found stoneware look. So that's why I'm doing all of these layers. So after I did the gold layer, I'm now coming in with a little bit of brown, and this is to just kind of dirty it up, if you will. I hate to use that term, but that's really what it's doing. It just kind of dirties it up and gives us a good foundation to start building on. So here's where the ugly phase comes into play. This is really looking horrible at this point, and I was questioning myself, but I just have to keep reminding myself to trust the process, trust your gut, trust yourself, and trust your instincts as you're working on this. So after I did the brown, I come in with a little bit of green, and this is going to be the main color that I want to go with, because I absolutely love green and I can't help myself. Everything has to have green in it. So I am coming in and I'm dry brushing this a little bit heavier. So with the first two dry brush coats, I just did a feather touch, just a feather stroke across everything to just kind of feather it on. But with this one, I am going on a little heavier, but you just want to be careful not to go so heavy that you start to cover up your first two layers of paint. So I'm just going to continue working on this. And again, I know it's not super exciting to watch me paint, but maybe we can play a little trivia while we paint. Okay, so here's where I am right now. This isn't looking so good. You know, the beauty of paint though is if you get some stuff on here and you don't like it, you just cover it all up, right? So, but I still think I want to go in the direction of making this look a little vintage and a little found. So I'm going to continue with my layering. However, I do feel like the green needs to be a little bit more prominent here, because right now it just looks too scribbled. There's not enough depth to this. So I'm going to add some more green. I'm going to continue dry brushing though, because I don't want to cover up our gold, nor do I want to cover up that brown that we first layered on. So when I'm doing this layering work like this, I do tend to work with my lighter colors first, and then I go darker, but then I reverse and go back to some of the lighter colors to kind of finish it all off. And I don't really know why I do that, y'all. I just do. It's just, I think it just comes from years of doing art on canvas and watercolor paint too, because I always work from light to dark. And I think it's just something, it's just a habit for me that I do. So I don't necessarily think you have to do it this way. You could start with your dark color and then add in so you could start with your low lights and add in your highlights, or, you know, however you want to do it. But I definitely feel like, anyway, all that to say, I definitely feel like we need some more green to this. So I'm just going to continue painting and trusting the process here. All right, I know painting is boring, so hey, how about if we play a little trivia? I've got some fun trivia questions, and I'm going to ask the trivia questions, and then I'm going to put the answers in the description box, but no cheating, y'all. You have to listen to the questions first and see if you can actually answer them. All right, ready for some crafty trivia? In addition to pottery and weaving, what are some other ancient crafts used in early civilizations? Ooh, that's a fun question. Who knows the answer? I'm sure a lot of you do. What popular paper craft, which emerged in the 1800s, became common after photography was invented? This used to be one of my favorite crafts. Oh, this one might be a little harder. What ancient civilization around 3000 BC is credited with the first known example of a type of paper folding created from beaten reeds? All right, let's take a little brief break from trivia to talk about what I am doing here. All right, y'all. So I've actually gone through several layers of paint now. I've dry brushed several layers on, and I'm really not liking this. It's really not coming together the way I had envisioned it. So I think what I'm going to do here is put a wash over the entire thing. Now, a wash is just a really watered down paint color. So the wash color that I'm using here is that a very original paint color that I used as our foundation color, as our kind of like our, oh, what do we want to call it? Primer, if you will. So I've watered it down quite a bit, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a wash over this entire vessel. I'm going to cover the whole entire thing, and then I'm going to only let it dry for about 2 to 3 minutes, because then we're going to come back in and we're going to do a wipe away. We're going to do like a wet distressing to this. So here we go again, trusting the process, and hopefully this is going to start to bring this piece together to where I'm actually liking it and feeling good about all of my hard work. So after letting this dry for only a couple of minutes, you do not want to let it dry much longer than that. I've come in here with a damp paper towel, and we're going to do some wet distressing on this. And basically we're going to wipe away a lot of that wash. Now, we're not wiping it all away because we have let some of it dry. And I'm not scrubbing on this. I just do this very gently and very delicately and lightly. And you can see how all of those layers of paint that we put in start to emerge underneath this wet distressing that we're doing. However, it's more muted. It doesn't look quite as messy and scribbled on as my original dry brushing did. This method really kind of helps just blend all of our colors together and all of those layers together to make them play more nicely together and make them just kind of blend and become a little bit more cohesive looking. Okay, so this is definitely looking so much better. I'm really glad that I did that wash over this. It just really blended all of our colors together and made this look a lot less blotchy. So because my dry brushing was looking pretty blotchy. So this method is a good step to use if that is happening to you and you want to just help blend and incorporate your colors more smoothly together. So now that I've done that, yep, you guessed it, y'all might think I am crazy at this point, but I am going to come back in and just do a tiny bit more dry brushing to this with some highlights and lowlights. While I am dry brushing some highlights and lowlights onto this piece, let's play a little more trivia. Let the trivia questions flow. The word craft comes from the Old English word creft. What does this originally mean? I am pretty sure I butchered the original pronunciation of that. Okay, y'all, so let's take a look at where we started with this piece. We started out with it just an ordinary 3D printed piece that looked very, very plasticky. This is what we started with, and we turned it from this to this. And I think it looked pretty good. Overall, I am happy with the results. It took me a while to get here. There were a lot of layers involved here, a lot of steps, but I'm glad I took the time to do all of it because in the end, I really, really do like it. And I think it is very pretty, filled with this really fun fall floral arrangement. So y'all are gonna have to let me know what you think of this. Alrighty, so for this project, we are going to see if we can't turn this really cool acorn top into something spectacular. So I have this cute little fish bowl, this piece right here, in my stash. And I took it down to Michael and I said, hey, do you think we could really create 3D print a fun acorn top for this? Because I just thought the whole ensemble put together looks just like an acorn. So Michael worked his magic and created, he created the design and then 3D printed this piece. So we're gonna have some fun painting this as well. So to get started, I am going to cover this whole thing in some Mod Podge just because, yeah, I don't think that brush is gonna fit in there. A smaller brush here. Okay, smaller brush. Let's try this again. So I'm going to go ahead and coat this whole thing in one layer of Mod Podge, and I am doing this just to give us a foundation for our paint. I think this is going to help the paint adhere better to this plastic. I haven't actually tried painting straight on to this plastic to see what will happen, but I don't want to risk it. I'm just going to go ahead and put this Mod Podge on because this really does help adhere to the plastic and then helps our paint adhere as well. Because you know when you paint on a lot of surfaces like this, it scratches really easily. So I want to avoid that here. So we'll go ahead, get this whole thing coated with some Mod Podge and then let that thoroughly dry before we start painting. The Mod Podge has completely dried and I love that this dries virtually clear. You don't even know, you can't even tell that I have it on there. So I'm going to go ahead and get our base coat on. Everything starts with a base coat, and you know, this seems like just simple painting, y'all, and painting can be very simple, but I like to play in layers because I think layers adds a lot to the piece. So we're going to do the same thing with this, but we always have to start with a base coat. So I am using this folk art paint. I believe this is called Cinnamon Swirl, and this is what I'm going to put down for the base coat. And while I'm doing that and letting it dry, I have one last final trivia question for us. And last but not least, we finish off our trivia with a super easy one. What tool, common in many craft rooms today, was first invented in 1944? I think we all know the answer to that one. Our base coat is dry, and we need to make this thing look a little bit more like an acorn. Because see how this acorn has got so much texture on the cap part? I want to try and achieve that here. So the base coat looks good, and you could just leave it right here like this, but y'all, I really do think it is worth the time and the effort to add your layers and just bring the piece to life. Give it a little bit more realism and add some depth, add some dimension, and add some texture to this. So I had an idea for adding texture to this because I didn't want to sit and individually paint all those little bumpy things on the acorn cap. So my thought was to take this basket weaved, this is a very heavily textured cloth that I have. It's kind of like not a basket weave, a waffle weave. And I put a layer of paint on, and while that paint was wet, I gently held this on, tapped it in, to see if I could kind of imprint that texture into the paint. And it did work. It worked really well, actually. However, I wasn't fully satisfied with the texture. I felt like it just needed a little bit more texture. So I played around a little bit. I did one more section. So I did work this in sections at this point. Played around a little bit more, and this time while the paint was wet, I held the cloth just a little tighter and held it, you know, down and kind of smooshed it in just a little bit more to see if I could get that texture to really pop and shine through. Okay, so that's better. Pressing it in a little bit harder did make a big difference, but I think I smushed it a little too hard because it kind of slid and smudged some of the paint. But we're on to something here. This is working. It's giving this piece some really cool texture. I just don't think it's quite enough. So what we're gonna do is add some baking soda to our paint, because this is gonna give us a really thick paint, and I think it's gonna give us more surface to imprint the texture from the cloth into this. So I'm using the same exact color. I've just mixed it pretty heavily with some baking soda, and I'm gonna brush it on. I think I just worked this in sections. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna work it in sections here, brush some on, and then do the imprint with the cloth and see what happens. Fingers crossed it's gonna work a lot better this time. Okay, so I think the trick here might be to apply this pretty heavily. So I did put a pretty thick layer of the baking soda paint onto this. Pressed with the cloth. You've got to be really careful here though not to let the cloth move. You just kind of want to stamp it, like you just want to go on and then straight back off, otherwise it smudges. But y'all, this worked so much better. Look at that beautiful texture. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this whole thing, do the same exact process here, just cover it all with some heavy thick paint that's mixed with baking soda, and then imprint the texture from our cloth onto this. Okay, this is looking pretty good so far. This actually is working, y'all. I'm loving the texture that this is creating on top of this. Again, I think the trick is to make sure that you put a really thick layer of the baking soda paint on this, because it really gives the cloth a lot of surface to imprint into. But look at that texture. Doesn't this just look so cool? I love it. It's looking very, very, very similar to the acorn cap. I mean, it's not raised completely up above, but you know, we get the picture across, right? It looks a lot better than just that original flat paint. So I'm happy with how this turned out. I think this was a great idea, and the baking soda paint really was the star and the hero of this whole step. So now we need to come in and dry brush in some lowlights, some highlights to just kind of enhance some of that texture and make that texture pop up off of our acorn cap. To do this, I am using some blending brushes. I think the blending brushes worked really, really well here. The blending brushes are super cool. I love these. I'm going to have them listed in the supply list, because if you don't have these in your arsenal, I really think you should. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I do love these brushes because they're not like a typical paint brush. They're more of a blending brush, and the texture of these brushes is really cool. You just kind of have to see. I wish I could give you a close-up look on them. Anyway, enough about the brushes already. So I'm going to go ahead and just blend some of this really pretty golden orange color onto this, or kind of a golden orangish brown color onto this, and I'm just blending it. So I put some paint on the brush, doing the dry brush technique, and then I just blend until the whole thing is covered. And then I'm going to come in with a darker color and do that same exact thing with a clean brush, only this time I'm just going to focus on some of those heavily textured places and those heavily textured points to just kind of help raise that texture and enhance the texture, because adding the darker color really does make that texture just pop right off this cute little acorn cap. While we are painting at mock speeds here, I do want to let y'all know that we are going to have this whole little ensemble available on my website for y'all. It's going to come with the acorn cap and the little dish, but the acorn cap will be unpainted so that you can add your own touch to it. All right, so let's go back to what we started with. We started with just this plain old 3D printed plasticky acorn cap, and we turned it into this. And y'all, I think this turned out absolutely darling. This might be my favorite of the two projects today. I love how this turned out so much. Okay, so what did y'all think of today's projects? I really hope that y'all loved these and that you enjoyed it. My hope is always that I somehow inspire y'all to just think outside the box. And I really feel like we did that with today's projects. We took some just plain old ordinary 3D printed plastic pieces and turned them into some exceptional home decor pieces. It was easy and it was so much fun to do this. So hopefully I've inspired y'all to, think outside the box a little bit and take pieces that you wouldn't normally take and just create something exceptional with them. Alrighty friends, well that wraps it up for this week. These projects were so much fun. I had a blast working on them. So much so that we've got some more cool 3D printed things coming your way. I'm going to be showing you how you can make some amazing Christmas projects. Yep, I said it, Christmas. Next week we will be kicking off all of our fun Christmas holiday projects. So y'all be sure, come back and see me again next week because Christmas is coming your way. It's going to be all about Christmas from here until Christmas. So come back and see me again next week. Until then, y'all take care and I will see you soon. Bye friends. Oh, and don't forget y'all that I am going to have our darling little acorn lids and bowls available for you on my website so that you can take these pieces and DIY them. You can put your own personal touches to them. I think they'll make a really cute addition to your holiday decor, your Thanksgiving tablescape. You could just do so many fun things with these. So go check them out on my website. The link will be in the description box below. Again, thanks for being here today, y'all. Love you all to pieces. Bye-bye. So, okay, never mind. Definitely, no, it doesn't. And, bye-bye.